MultiGreen, building attainable, sustainable, and tech-enabled multifamily real estate through impact investing.
Welcome to the MultiGreen podcast. I'm your host, Randy Norton, and today I'm excited to be speaking with my mayor of my hometown, here in the city of Henderson, Nevada, Mayor Debra March. Mayor March is a strong advocate of economic development in the city of Henderson and is working to attract new business, create jobs, and diversify the local economy, including the recent expansion of professional sports in Southern Nevada. She is also an active member of the Urban Land Institute Nevada District Council and NAIOP Southern Nevada, both of which are the commercial real estate development associations. Previously, she spent 15 years as the director of UNLV's Lead Institute for Real Estate Studies, where she led the development of livable communities. Enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the podcast. Today we have Mayor Debra March of the city of Henderson. Thank you for being with us today, Mayor.
It truly is a pleasure for me to be able to join you today. This is an important topic that we're talking about, and I'm glad that I can be here to join you.
Well, I'm excited to talk about my home city, here, the city of Henderson. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and I am here located on Green Valley Parkway here in the city of Henderson. And it has seen explosive growth over the last 25 years, especially during your tutelage. How might Henderson address scarcity and some of the attainable housing issues that we have today?
Thank you. Good question. Henderson's a desirable community that's experienced significant growth in the last 25 years and added an average of 7,000 new residents a year for the last 2 decades, nearly doubling our population during that time. At more than 330,000 residents, we now rival Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, St. Louis in size, and are one of the top 100 large cities in America. This growth has made Henderson the fastest growing city in Nevada and among the fastest growing similarly sized cities in the country since 2000. And there's a nationwide housing shortage that we recognize, which has gotten worse due to labor constraints, increased supply costs. And according to Realtor.com, the U.S. is now short 5.24 million homes. The gap between single home construction and new household formation is up from a shortage of 3.84 million homes 3 years ago. And according to Aldo Martinez from the Las Vegas Realtors, prior to the 2008 crash, we were building up to 38,000 homes a year in our community. And after the recession, the Las Vegas Valley started building only 5,000 to 10,000 homes a year, and not enough to keep pace with our population growth. Even with the growth in construction in recent years, realtors estimate that we're short about 117,000 homes in our community. There's a lot of strategies that we can pursue at the local level. We're seeing more interest in non-traditional construction types like prefabricated housing, modular construction, and other types of construction as well. We can get creative and be flexible with building materials and dedicate staff to training to get up to speed on reviewing construction types that are different. And on the land use and zoning front and development regulations, they influence the amount and locations where housing can be built and what housing types can be built. So Henderson's going through a code update right now and adjusting regulations to make accessory dwelling units more flexible, creating standards for single-family attached housing like townhomes, and we're encouraging more density in our community. We are also working with developers to set aside BLM land for affordable housing, and we're prioritizing funds for new construction of income-restricted housing as well. And examples of this would be Rise Apartments, for which the city's provided $3 million to build 305 apartment units in West Henderson. And we're partnering with other jurisdictions and nonprofits to bring unique, permanent, and supportive housing as well, like the project that we're working on with Nevada Hand and St. Jude's Ranch for transitional housing for 18 to 24-year-olds who've aged out of the foster care system and need affordable housing. So Henderson's committed to looking for solutions across our community to make sure there is attainable housing.
Excellent. I want to talk a little bit about the demand, because obviously there is an insatiable demand to live here in the city of Henderson. It seems like people are coming in every single week. I don't know what the U-Haul inbound study is, but it's got to be significant. One math formula I was doing the other day, I think the DMV said over 46,000 licenses were turned in here in the county of Clark. And that would be about 5 people an hour moving in just from California alone. Can our infrastructure continue to handle such demand?
I think that's certainly a conversation that needs to happen going forward, because we need to look at all of our natural resources and the ability to serve these people. And I suspect there's supply demand. I suspect there's issues with, as people come here and aren't able to find affordable housing, maybe it becomes a decision that they make about what market they move to. Certainly, we believe Henderson's an attractive market, but that's a conversation that individuals have to have about whether they're moving here from California and able to purchase a home.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the accomplishments of the city in the last few years? I know that we get close to or more than 300 days of sun a year, which gives us a lot of recreational activities outside. And it seems like our demographic here is a very active community. Can you expand on that?
Henderson has a remarkable quality of life, and we're on so many great lists for quality of life, for a great place to raise a family, for great community services. Our Parks and Recreation program here in Henderson has twice received the gold medal for parks, and only one community a year receives that gold medal, and Henderson's received it twice in the last 15 years. So we take pride in the fact that we have almost 70 parks in our city and 220 miles of trails. We also honor the fact that we are a safe community. In fact, we've been designated the second safest community in America, and we take great pride in that fact, and that we have the police and fire and emergency management services to support folks who live here, work here, and play here.
So we know there's a demand. What are some of the challenges to increasing the inventory of affordable or attainable housing? And I know earlier you were mentioning several things that the city is working on to address it. What more could be done, whether it's from the government side or the private side?
In Southern Nevada, there's constraints with land availability and escalating land prices. Building materials have also shot up recently, and available land is not located close to public transit, making it more challenging to get to work and to get to the amenities that folks need. So Henderson has historically been a suburban community, attractive to production home builders, and not as much density, mixed use, or variety of housing product like workforce housing that's more common on the East Coast, right? So banks are used to financing traditional mortgages in this market. We need to get more creative as the prices of land and homes increase and the types of product change, that we need to get more creative with our financial tools. We may need the tools like community land trusts and housing trusts that hold the land in trust, and the buyer purchases just the improvement and negotiates a rate of increase that's not tied to the land. Traditional banks aren't used to financing that way, which makes more constraints and makes it more difficult for how we find solutions to deal with these challenges around attainability. And what the market is able to deliver right now in Henderson is a median price of $450,000 for new construction. And that's quite high for attainable housing. And it's not really affordable for anyone making less than $100,000 a year. So building wealth through home ownership has been an American value since this country's inception. And we need to get creative with financing, help with down payment assistance, acquire land for housing development, and possibly maintain land ownership for the purposes of affordable housing. We should ensure that our building codes can accommodate these different types of and alternative construction methods and materials. And we're supportive of Senator Catherine Cortez Mastro's land bill, which would help to expand the disposal boundaries and increase land availability for housing affordability. We have to balance that with the environmental stewardship that is our responsibility to continue to be cautious given our fragile water supply in this valley. And potential attainable housing strategies could include light rail to catalyze investment in higher density along certain corridors, incentives for the missing middle housing, housing trusts to keep the land costs out of the purchase price but still allow for home ownership, maybe adaptive reuse policies and incentives to allow the conversion and repurposing of, say, retail buildings or commercial buildings into a residential use. Private sector participation by dedicating a percentage of units to lower income levels and workforce income levels, and permanent and supportive housing to those who are most vulnerable in our community, including the homeless.
That's quite the list. Obviously, there's a lot of tools you have. How do we promote social equality or social equity and social inclusion with our housing development and within our communities?
Good question. Designing spaces and amenities that bring the community together in a variety of ways is important to create a sense of place for people to have fun on a neutral ground. And some of the things that we've done here in Henderson, for example, Lifeguard Arena, we have the Water Street Plaza that's adjacent to it. We have community gatherings like the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Golden Knights watch parties. We've had movies on the screen where the Henderson Symphony Orchestra has come out and played music to that. Recently, we inaugurated the Dollar Loan Center, which is an important community anchor where we'll be able to host entertainment, sporting events, but also high school graduations and other community-based events. So sports, music, entertainment, and these different celebrations bring the community together and create a shared sense of civic pride. And I think that's really critical and something that as a city, we've really embraced. While we're a growing city, we want to make sure that we retain that small town feel, that sense of community, that sense of cohesion that we celebrate, and the pride that we have in our parks, our schools, in our historic downtown, our sports teams now, and so many community events that occur in our community. Housing is also important to bring people together. So things that have historically zoned people to be separated, now we need to look at some mixed zoning that brings people together in a more meaningful, cohesive way to build community and build community safety around that as well.
We didn't talk about this prior to this podcast, but do you think that the city of Henderson is pro-development? And do you think you have the tools necessary to do this?
I think Henderson is pro-sustainable development, that we monitor closely what the resources are, what's available, land availability. We look at water availability, and we work closely with the Water Authority to make sure that we have the resources to do that. We're looking at encouraging development community to do some things that are more creative, like different densities, trying to increase densities. I know in the Henderson West project that we're working on, we're looking at more housing types that are higher density with retail on the first floor. And I know here in downtown Water Street, we have this Watermark project that's going up. It'll have retail, restaurants on the first floor, second floor offices, and it will have 155 residential units. So it's going to help with that vibrancy, creating that sense of place in our downtown Henderson, which we're really interested in creating that place where people can walk around and get the resources they need, have access to restaurants and the quality of life that they choose as they choose to live there.
I love what's going on in downtown Henderson. I can't even recognize it. The redevelopment there has been great. Let's talk a little bit about sustainability. You said the word sustainable development, and that resonates with me. And in fact, we right now are involved with the Apex project at Galleria, which is 336 units. And we're targeting the workforce demographic. And we actually were one of the first groups to receive a CPACE loan.
Oh, yes.
In the city of Henderson, I believe. And I think the second in Clark County. And that was a great tool, which promotes energy efficiency on that property. And because of that, we're going to be able to do some neat things with energy efficiency and operations. But sustainable development is very difficult to do. It is definitely, ESG is in front and center of everything that we're doing today. So talking about sustainability, how does sustainability contribute to attainability?
Thank you. That's a good question. So I serve as the chair of the Regional Transportation Commission for Southern Nevada, and that supports transit as a critical tool to sustainability in a community so that we can increase population without increasing the carbon emissions in traffic. So encouraging and teaching a culture of transit, I think, is critical. So increasing the number of people who take transit to work reduces single-use vehicle trips and carbon emissions. Transit's more cost-effective than owning and maintaining a car and frees up funds for housing, education, and other things that a family might need. We must be mindful of our environmental footprint and how we keep a variety of housing options available in the face of escalating costs. Other ways that we can do this is through water conservation and more desert-friendly landscaping, and some energy efficiency technologies and renewable energy improvements can also reduce utility bill costs as well. Your firm, MultiGreen, is a leader and a great example for developers to think about these issues and how the private sector can really contribute to housing choice and attainability and sustainability and social cohesion as well. MultiGreen's development at Apex at Galleria was the first development in Henderson to make use of our new CPACE program. And so we're very proud of the work that you're all doing, and it provides low-cost financing for energy efficiency improvements for the private sector. We're looking for private sector partners to offer employer-assisted housing for their workforce training opportunities, like what might be seen in West Henderson with Haas Automation going in there, which is an advanced manufacturing company that's investing in workforce training and education for the future talent pipeline. The private sector can also be more of a catalyst for health in terms of the benefits that they provide to their workforce, which is a huge thing during COVID, especially.
Mayor, I love the fact that you know so much about real estate development, and you're so involved in the region and the county, and you have been for such a long time. What can developers do to contribute to these attainable and sustainable issues here in the county?
I think become engaged, understand what the issues are, educate yourself, probably look at, what development opportunities are around sustainable practices. Like, for example, in East Henderson, we're looking at this reimagined Boulder Highway that would actually have center running transit with 2 lanes of traffic and then a bike lane, a dedicated bike lane that's separated. So it makes it a safer environment for cyclists to be able to use the roadway, but it also, Boulder Highway is the #1 road for road deaths in the state of Nevada. So we have to put it on a road diet, right? So looking at how we redesign that road, not only to make it safer, but also to set the table for perhaps future investment with transit, where it can be transit-oriented development and residential development along that corridor. I think it's really a place to watch in the future.
One thing that all of my teammates, always ask me about is water. Do we have enough water out here in the desert?
I think we have to be prudent with our water, and we work very closely with the Water Authority to make sure that we're taking steps necessary to protect the water supply that we have here. We actually, I think a lot of people don't realize that Southern Nevada, or Nevada, only receives 1.8% of the water that comes to Lake Mead, right? So
Wow.
It's important for us to work with our partners upstream and partners downstream. And so there's things that we're doing and can do locally, like in Henderson, we're taking out all unnecessary turf, right? And that we're also raising the charges for folks who have excessive water use to encourage them to take out landscaping that isn't necessary and not prudent or not water conservation minded. So there's things that we can do, but we also are working, the Water Authority is working with Southern California, who has been a large consumer, obviously, of the water that comes through Lake Mead. And we actually are helping them build a reuse system, much like we do in Southern Nevada, where we use water and then we're able to clean it and then reuse it again and put it back into the system and reuse it again. It's really, it's called return flow credits. And historically, California would get the water and then they would dump it into the ocean. But now they can capture it, reuse it a couple of times before they put it into the ocean. So I think that there's some things that can be done. That's one example. There's things that can be done upstream as well to make sure that we're all prudent, but we are all being much more mindful. In fact, one of the conversations we've had with our planning department is making sure that as each development comes in, that we have a conversation about water consumption and do we have the resources? And it isn't so much a closed system that consumes the water, it's the outdoor landscaping that really is the challenge for evaporation, especially in the desert. So if we're using water and it goes through a hotel or through a residential use, it will go back into the system. And again, because of return flow credits, we get to reuse that water again.
Well, very good explanation of the dynamics that are going on here in the Valley. To you, Mayor March, what is attainable housing and what is the missing middle?
Attainable housing, I've been very involved at UNLV. As you know, I ran the LEED Institute and I've been very involved with the Urban Land Institute. And we've had these conversations about attainable housing, and it's non-subsidized housing for the middle class buyers, but it's also housing for all users at the price point that they can afford to purchase, right? It's important to ensure that all types of housing are available to reduce the downward pressure on the market that's kept renters from purchasing homes and made it unaffordable for lower income level folks. So making sure that we have housing types for all users, regardless of their income. I grew up in Detroit, and we have a lot of properties that were referred to as the missing middle housing there. And it's important that we look at diverse, affordable housing choices for all, and look at walkable neighborhoods, and look at quality community. And just because it may be a small house doesn't mean it shouldn't have the quality of life that a community deserves to have, like great parks, trails, open space, connectivity, because we want our community, regardless of your income level, to be able to be a healthy community because they're out engaging in the community. So my vision for attainable housing is that people have choices throughout their life stages and can afford the types of housing that they need at each stage in their life.
Mayor March, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. And thank you so much for the generous time, service, and expertise that you provide to the residents here in the city of Henderson.
Thank you. It truly is an honor for me to be able to join you.
Thank you for listening. Join us as we build 40,000 attainable, sustainable, and tech-enabled multifamily homes by 2030. And if you like the content you're hearing, hit the subscribe button. Follow us at Think MultiGreen and sign up to learn more at www.multi.green.